So why am I going to put that sound in my game? Revenge of the Zombies versus letterboxes. Clang, clang, clang. Again, when we do nothing other than playing with pitch, my mouse keeps disappearing on me. Sorry, I'm just going to kill some of these other settings. So if we grab the pitch of this, and in this case what we've done is we've dropped it down a bit over an octave. That's the 44-gallon drum that you kick in front of the zombie, you know, when he's coming towards you while he's trying to hit your letterbox. So that's by dropping it by about an octave. If we drop it by about 2 octaves, that's the big door to the garage that you've just kind of like slammed in the zombie's face while you're running away from the zombie. I'm going to keep going here. 3 octaves. Where am I? 36. That's the zombie trying to eat his way through the hull of the ship, for instance. Space zombies now. And 4 octaves. What happens if we go 4 octaves? I think sometimes 4 octaves is just a bit too extreme. I don't know what that is, but it scares the bejesus out of me. Now this is without even going up into, and so far all we've done is gone down octaves. So if we go up an octave, now I've got a bit of randomization on that, and that's one of the other things. One of the other functions I have is to randomize the pitch every time I play it, because in this particular case, okay, again, what would we use that sound? Well, think about this. If we have a giant explosion and there's bits of metal flying everywhere, we've now got the sound of some debris falling down. And in fact, because there's a whole bunch of sounds in here that it's randomly choosing, and because it's randomly pitch shifting them, this one sound, we could actually have this clang, 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 you know, debris falling everywhere from one sound effect again. So what we've done here, I'll crank it right up the top. I think it gets a little bit silly if you go too high. Some sound effects can get really quite strange when you go too high. Somebody playing with the cutlery. However, let's just, as a point of demonstration, okay, so here's a sound. This is these same sounds. And I'm just going to do something very, very quickly in Fmod. I'm not really going to go into too much depth of what it is that I've done, right? But this is just sort of to demonstrate another thing that you could do with these sorts of sounds. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen here. I think it's going to be metallic. It's probably going to sound a little bit sort of like some sort of digitally robot-y sort of thing maybe going on. Oh, okay, that didn't sound quite the way I wanted it to, so let's crank that up as well. Now we get this. You know, it's the Matrix if Keanu Reeves was made out of tinfoil. My point is, look at what we just did with one sound. Well, actually, there were actually 10 sounds in there, but 8 sounds in there, sorry. But again, they're all very small. We could have reduced the number of it if we were trying to save space. So there's kind of, I guess, perhaps thought number 2. If you take a sound and you're going to actually go to the trouble of putting it into memory and taking up memory space, and you use that sound for one thing, waste, because there are so many things you could get out of that sound. And this is where the actual sound design comes in. What you want to do is you want to sit down and think, what are all the sounds that we need in here? How can we combine them all together? And what are the results that we can get? All right, so if I go to what we have here, this particular group of sounds here, this actually has the shotgun in it. And these groups are in the thing that's called surface explosion. And what I've done from this point of view is created a sound that has combined the shotgun, a bit of a whoosh of flame, that metal box as well, and a whole bunch of other things. I've actually, ooh, hang on. Before I play that, no, I don't have that metal box in it. I was about to say, because if I trigger it now with that metal box, we'll get metal box, yes I do. Let's just reset that metal box back to where it needs to be. It's one of the problems with playing around things in real time. You can break them. So this is moving towards the whole idea of generative synthesis, because what's happened here is all of these elements are combined together, and this is the explosion sound. And so what happens is that when you get to the game and you've got your bazooka or whatever and you pull the trigger, you get an explosion. Pull the trigger again, and again, It's different every single time you press the button. And frankly, the ability to do this has been around for a long time. I did this on a PS2 game years ago. It was a SpongeBob SquarePants, of all things, game. But my point is that the PS2 only has 2 meg of memory for sound. That's actually about on par with what a lot of people are doing on iPhone and iPad things. So you can have a game where every single time you pull the trigger on an explosion, every single time you have some sort of event happen, it's slightly different. And it doesn't have to be radically different, it just needs to be slightly different. And what that does is it means that people are sitting there going, hang on, that wasn't exactly the same sound, again and again and again. I'll give you a couple more examples of this in a second. Here's just the same sort of thing. This is exactly the same format, except that all the sounds that I've done in this time, instead of there being shotguns and bits of metal, all these sounds were recorded by dropping a microphone under the water and basically letting some bubbles out of a bucket. So we've got an initial splash and a whole bunch of bubbles, and then we get the idea of either something exploding underwater or something falling underwater. All right. Now, that's great. We've got sort of single shot events. So we've got some funky shotgun sounds. We've got some funky funky explosions. But one of the biggest issues that a lot of people have is with the idea of, oh yeah, but I want to have some nice ambience. You know, and I need to go out and record birds in a forest or whatever. And that's going to take up hours and hours and hours, because for me to have a nice long sound of background ambience without it looping, it needs to be a large file, takes up lots of space. Using the same sort of procedure, we can actually get similar effects out of other things. And I'll start with the birds. The birds here are very, very similar. Now, there's 16 files here. I think that the actual demo that I did previously was 10 sound files. They were not compressed, so they were all full WAV files. All right, so we're talking 10 mono WAV files that were at 48 kilohertz 16-bit. So for those of you who don't know the technical side of things, that's basically DVD quality. All those 10 sound files combined together added up to 1 meg. When you combine them all together and put them into something like this, what you get is this is not going to loop because it's not a looping sound. What it's actually doing is it's taking those individual sound files and it's being instructed to play one, wait for a little bit, then play another one. Wait for a little bit, then play another one. Sometimes playing the next one before the other one's finished, so you get 2 playing at the same time. The amount of time before it waits is randomly determined. And so what effectively we've got here is by providing this with 16 sounds, it is producing an effect similar to what we get in nature. The sounds, the period of time between the sounds is randomly determined. The pitch of the sounds has a defined but variable pitch change up and down. A little bit of volume, and in fact, what you're not hearing through here is this is actually also set up to be fully 3D spatialized randomization. So if this was a full 7.1 surround sound setup we're hearing, we would be completely surrounded by birds randomly all around us. And this will spawn forever. If we all go home and come back tomorrow, this is still going. This is with 1 meg of memory. It never loops, it never repeats. So from that point of view, if anybody ever says to you, oh, yeah, I can't really get a decent sort of ambience for our forest because it'll take up too much room, tell them they're wrong. And in fact, the technology, as I said, has been around to be able to do this for quite some time.